Welcome back to Right Mindset. Most of us have a dream, a book to write, a business to start, a life to transform. But there is a silent, invisible enemy standing between you and that dream. It is not the economy, it is not your lack of talent, and it is not your environment. It is something deeper. Today, we are going to expose this enemy and show you how to defeat it forever. If you want to stop procrastinating and finally start creating, you need to listen to every single word of this breakdown. Resistance is the primary force that prevents us from doing our work. It is a universal, negative, and self-sabotaging energy that appears whenever we attempt to pursue a calling or a higher purpose. If you are feeling stuck, paralyzed by indecision, or overwhelmed by the urge to walk away from your goals, you are not alone. You are simply being attacked by resistance. It is the friction that occurs when we attempt to transition from a lower state of consciousness to a higher one. The more important a project is to your soul's evolution, the more resistance you will experience. It is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are on the right path. Resistance is an inevitable byproduct of pursuing anything meaningful. By identifying it as a tangible force, you move from being a victim of your moods to an observer of your psychological landscape. You will learn to recognize its voice, which often sounds suspiciously like your own, telling you to wait for the perfect moment, take a break, or start tomorrow. Understanding that this is a natural, albeit hostile, law of the universe is your first essential step toward total victory.
Resistance is a master of disguise, frequently presents itself as extreme perfectionism, the voice that tells you your work isn't ready yet, causing you to endlessly polish the opening paragraph of a book or the first few frames of a video while the project stalls. It can also appear as a crushing fear of failure, convincing you that it is safer to never start than to risk being judged by others. Sometimes resistance uses rational excuses. It will remind you of all the responsible things you have to do instead, such as cleaning your office, organizing your email, or researching for hours without ever writing a single sentence. To win this battle, you must learn to spot these traps before they gain momentum. You need to develop the habit of auditing your behavior. When you feel an intense urge to abandon your desk, ask yourself if you are truly busy or if you are simply avoiding the work that matters. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward dismantling them. By calling resistance out for what it is, a distraction, you strip away its mask, forcing it to confront your discipline instead of your doubt.
The fundamental difference between an amateur and a professional is not found in talent, nor is it found in resources or luck. It is found entirely in discipline. An amateur allows their emotional state to dictate their actions, only working when they feel inspired, motivated, or confident. However, inspiration is a fickle guest. It rarely shows up for those who wait for it to arrive. The professional, by contrast, adopts a completely different philosophy. They show up every single day, regardless of how they feel, regardless of whether the muse is present, and regardless of external circumstances. When you commit to becoming a professional, you stop treating your work as a hobby that you visit when you have spare time, and begin treating it as a sacred commitment. You prioritize the work above your personal comfort. This shift is psychological, yet it yields practical, tangible results. By showing up consistently, you signal to your own mind that your work is a priority, not an option. You no longer wait for the perfect conditions because you have learned that the conditions are never perfect. Turning pro means you take responsibility for your output. It is the process of shedding the victim mentality and stepping into a role of active creation, where you do the work not because you feel like it, but because it is your job to do so. When you lean on your ritual, you essentially trick your brain into bypassing the initial violent strike of resistance. You are not waiting for the right time or for a spark of genius. You are simply showing up for your appointment with yourself. When the ritual begins, the resistance starts to fade because you have already committed to the action. It is about creating a bridge between your current state of distraction and your future state of focus. If you rely on discipline alone, you will eventually fail. But if you rely on a sacred, unbreakable ritual, you will find the work becomes inevitable. Procrastination is often misunderstood as laziness, but in reality, it is the most common manifestation of resistance. We do not procrastinate because we are unable to do the work. We procrastinate because we are terrified of the internal shift that occurs when we truly commit to our craft. To bypass this, you must rely on the power of ritual. A ritual is not just a habit. It is a psychological trigger that tells your brain that the everyday world is being left behind and the creative world is beginning. By performing the same small, simple actions before you start, like making a cup of coffee, tidying your desk, or playing a specific piece of music, you remove the need for willpower. Willpower is a limited resource that depletes throughout the day, but a ritual is automated. We have covered a lot of ground today, but remember this: the war against resistance never truly ends. It is a daily engagement, a constant negotiation between who you are and who you want to become. However, you become a better, more seasoned warrior every single day you choose to show up, regardless of the odds or your own feelings. The work you do matters, and the world is waiting for what you have to create. Please, take this knowledge and apply it today. Don't wait for later. If this deep dive helped you identify your own obstacles and provided the clarity you needed to start, please like this video. Share it with a fellow creator who is struggling to get their project off the ground, and subscribe to Right Mindset. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you never miss our next deep dive into the books that provide the blueprints for a successful life.